traveled extensively in China for the last 12 years. They don't understand the benefits of cooking with ceramic. They cook with ceramic because there it's less expensive, at least the ceramics they're using, but the sophistication of our material, our product, is unique to the United States, and it's the country that we want to launch because they're just so knowledgeable and they're so accepting of new products. Where in the rest of the parts of the world, they're just not. They don't move as quickly.
This is also a very health conscious country.
Yes, it is.
That is preoccupied with longevity and well-being, and with anti-aging science and medicine coming in. People are way more knowledgeable, and they're going to invest their time and energy, and they're going to make sure that they have the healthiest things around them they can. What about Europe?
Well, Europe has some very, very strict standards when it comes to lead and cadmium. With silicone materials, with plastics, but they are, and from a design standpoint, I know, coming out of Germany and Italy and the UK, from a design standpoint, some of the wonderful designs are coming out of Europe, and a lot of people will look. They'll go to various shows in Germany to see exactly, what the new styles and what the new colors are. But the sheer volume of product growth pales in comparison. There's nowhere else in the world that they pale in comparison to what the United States is capable of doing, both in acceptance of new ideas. The one country that I will say is probably beyond us is Canada when it comes to green and pollution. They really have some great standards, and they're really pushing the envelope. They just don't have the buying power up in Canada that they do in the United States. But we get a tremendous amount of feedback from people up in Canada, and they're saying, we've been championing this, healthy living and healthy cooking and toxicity thing for many years. It's just not a real big buying resource yet up in Canada, and we hope in the future to have a distributor set up in Canada that we can ship throughout Canada, because right now it's very expensive with the duty and the tariffs that you would have to pay to ship from the United States our material into Canada. It's the only thing that makes it a little difficult to sell to our Canadian friends. But Europe, I think it's United States, Canada, then I think it's Europe, and Australia is also a very good.
I was going to say Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
New Zealand's known for being extremely health conscious.
Yes, they are. And then I would say that they are very interested in our ceramic product and what it can do. And then the rest of the world, Asia being probably lagging behind only because they don't think in terms of the new products. They kind of look for the United States from a design standpoint, and that's why we designed it here in the U.S. and having it made in China.
Now, I notice you have a teaware line and a bakeware line. Let's talk about the teaware line. Why did you do a teaware line?
Teaware, I'd have to say almost all of the teapots in the United States are either cast iron or some carbon steel, Namalon steel. They're water boilers. They put them on top of the stove. And the unfortunate thing is that the cheaper the teapot, the cheaper the metal, and then that you end up getting more leaching. So when you spend a lot of money, even for a cast iron pot, and in Japan it's very big with this, they do a tremendous amount of cast iron water boiling, and the problem is that the metal is leaching right onto right into the water, and that becomes a problem. And when you deal with ceramics, here, even before Xtrema came out, a lot of people would boil the water in their cast iron or their aluminum tea kettle, and they would pour it into a porcelain serving teapot. It would be on the table, have like a little cozy around it to keep the water warm, but that you had to use two vessels. You had to boil the water in something other than what you were serving it in. But with Xtrema, because ours is completely non-toxic and has great thermal properties, you could put that on top of the stove, and you never have to worry about leaching any metal because it's ceramic. And we make the only top-of-stove ceramic teapot in the world. Nobody else makes a ceramic teapot, so you could boil the water on top of the stove. You could take it right to the table, and then you could put it back on top of the stove. Or you could put it back in the refrigerator if you wanted, because There's no leaching. Nobody will boil. You shouldn't boil water in metal and then take it to the table when it's not that attractive. And you're not going to store in metal. You're going to put it into some either glass or ceramic bowl or bowl or serving vessel. You're not going to leave it in the metal. But with Xtrema, you don't have to worry about that. That's the same thing with a cookware. A cookware can go from top of the stove. You can make macaroni and cheese under the broiler in the oven, and then you could take it to the table because it's a ceramic vessel, and then you could put it back in the refrigerator or in the freezer. Same thing with a cookware. You have 1.5 quart, or you make chili, you put it on top of the stove, put it to the table, and then put it in the refrigerator. You don't have to worry about leaching. You don't have to worry about using another vessel. And so it just cuts down the expense of having to buy, other serving bowls. And it's just more versatility when you use ceramic than it is when you use any other type of, whether it's plastic or any other type of metal, because it just gives you more versatility.
Well, I'll tell you that I think that Europe would love your products, and I think the French would love your products because they're extremely health conscious. They have very strict laws about chemicals and processed food. Everything there is fresh.
Yes.
And I interviewed Mireille Giuliano, who wrote French Women Don't Get Fat, twice in the last year. And I just have a sense that they would just love your products.
That would be wonderful. And we actually do have, in the UK, we have a customer called Red23, and they're an internet company, and we've been doing a pretty fair amount of business with them, and we're kind of excited. They actually have been selling our product in Europe, and we hope to, God willing, build that business with them, because we do know that there's a customer in Europe that is wants to make this move to ceramics, and there's just not a lot of avenues for that. So hopefully we can, build that business and have a distributor there in the UK that can service all the various countries, from the UK. That would be a blessing.
That would be incredible. Talk a little bit about your journey through some of the politics of being a front runner in this area. Share whatever you feel is pertinent, what you've gone through or what you noticed, because in politics, when you have an innovation, and this is not considered outside of your area a disruptive innovation yet, because until it has a more integral click into the market, but I feel it could be a disruptive innovation. What are some of the challenges you've gone through when you realize there is some politics in it? And I don't want to make this up. If you haven't suffered or been through any of that, that's fine. But I'd like to know if you have been through challenges that seem like there's politics in the industry and you're getting pushback from the industry.
The biggest obstacle we had to overcome is because we went to several of the shows, the gourmet show, international gourmet show, and where all the various major retailers in the United States would come, and we had a very elaborate booth set up there. And I remember we did that for several years, and we were at a World International Tea Show. And what was interesting is everybody who came, all the different retailers who came to that show, basically said, "You're not going to make it. You're not going to be successful." They see no need for ceramics. Why would you need ceramics? And we told them all about the features and benefits and the health. But you have to realize they're buying for these big chains in these stores, and they weren't hearing from their customers about this toxicity and green and health. They were basically, their customers were telling them, "How come the price is so high?" or "How come I can't get this for this price?" or "Put it on this shelf," or "this color." And we were just pretty dejected for 2 years going that route and absolutely being told you're not going to be successful.
That's very rude for any company or group to tell you that. It's actually rude.
It is, and it's almost you almost feel if you believe the press, you just want to go home and cry and say, "You know what, God, why am I doing this? Because I'm not going to make it." And we're a company where we spend our own money. We didn't borrow any money from anybody to launch this business. So you invest all your money, you give it a go, your website, and then suddenly people are telling you you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. It'll take you 10 years. The big metal companies are going to squash you. It's just of no value. So we said, well, then you know what? We're moving in a different direction. We could we know we couldn't survive. We just didn't have the financial resource or the time. And I remember